The Serpent and the Rainbow. The Serpent and the Rainbow is an American horror film released in 1982 directed by Wes Craven, the creator of the Freddy Krueger films. The film is partially based on a book of the same name written in 1985 by anthropologist Wade Davis, which refers to his experiences in Haiti, where he investigated the story of Clairvius Narcisse, a man allegedly poisoned, buried alive, and a victim of a zombieification process. This film is incredible, where we can see the representation of fears in an abstract plane, well represented, such as the staging of dreams and nightmares. Everything is so vivid and real, as well as natural, where the settings are the jungle and the wild locations of Haiti. But everything is real, the representations that we see in the film are real, there are no actors who serve as extras, the ceremonies are real, everything done by people from the original towns of Haiti. Even the sex scene, where a white man is sexually possessed by a beautiful Haitian woman, performing the act right after a ceremony, at night and in nature. Look at those wild images of sex, you could say wild, but not confuse it with rough sex, but with an act within nature, where a woman and a man are one more element of it. It is simply great. The Serpent and the Rainbow follows the exploits of Dr. Dennis Allen, an anthropologist who travels the world in search of medicinal herbs that can benefit humanity. After an ominous burial sequence in what we would eventually discover took place in Haiti, the film begins with Dennis' field trip to the Peruvian Amazon basin, where he has a drug-induced premonition upon visiting a local tribe. After coming to, he finds the village deserted and the pilot of his helicopter dead. But a jaguar guides him out of the jungle and he eventually finds his way back to Boston. Back home, his mentor, Dr. Earl Schoonbacher, arranges a meeting with pharmaceutical magnate Dr. Andrew Casti, who shows Dennis the original medical death certificate of Christophe Durand, a resident of Haiti, along with his later dated photograph proving that he is somehow still alive. Casti suspects that an as yet unknown drug is involved and sees an opportunity to develop a better anesthetic. He then asks Dennis to go to Haiti, find out, and return with the drug. After initially scoffing at the idea of resurrection and at zombification, Dennis accepts Casti's compromise and sets off for one of the poorest countries in the world amidst the throes of Baby Doc Duvalier's dictatorship and the reign of terror of his secret police, the Tun-Tun Macoots. Arriving in Port-au-Prince, he meets Dr. Moriel Duchamp, an elegant Haitian doctor who runs a needy local clinic for the mentally challenged. Dennis attempts to find Christophe, put him in the crosshairs of the ruthless Captain d'Argent Patraud, who heads the Haitian secret police. Aside from violence, Patraud also draws power from black magic. Dennis finds some protection in Lucien Celine, a voodoo priest and his tenuous ally. At Lucien's estate, Dr. Duchamp and Dennis arrive. Lucien refuses to talk about the powder as they call it, and instead tells Duchamp to dance. Dr. Duchamp says she won't do it that night, but Lucien tells her that she will dance that night and enjoy it. Duchamp leaves, but just before she leaves, one of the dancers throws some kind of powder in her face and Duchamp becomes possessed, thus fulfilling what Lucien told her, as she danced that night, enjoying the moment, and dancing for Dennis. But Captain Patraud makes his entrance and begins to enjoy the musical number, but at one point he touches his wine glass with his spoon, and just at that moment the dancer who stopped Duchamp also took possession, but in a violent way, wanting to hurt Duchamp. Dennis tried to stop him by breaking a bottle on his head, but it didn't work, so Lucien stepped into action and stopped the dancer, bringing him back to normal. At that moment Patraud walks away with a laugh on his face. The next day Dennis and Duchamp go to Christophe's village, but no one in the village wants to talk to them. There they meet his sister, who eventually tells them that Christophe meets with the dead, meaning that he is always in the village pantheon. Dennis and Duchamp go to the cemetery, but after a long time they only meet some grave robbers, scaring and angering Dennis. Duchamp and Dennis argue. Dennis accuses Duchamp that it was all a farce to get money for her hospital. Duchamp obviously denies everything, already upset by this point, and right at the most critical point of the discussion, Christophe arrives. They realize that unlike the other people who had been zombified, he had reason and could speak perfectly, he even knew English. But unfortunately he had inside himself that he was actually dead, and that was why he should be with his family, there in the cemetery. Dennis tried ineffectively to convince him that he was alive and should live his life, but it was all in vain. After this event, Dennis was arrested by the police and was introduced to Patraud. The captain questioned him about his motives for being on the island, and told him at the end before giving him his passport that he should go home, but not before warning him that this was the first warning call. Dennis ignored all this and continued his search. The search eventually leads Dennis to a flashy con man named Louis Mozart, who surprisingly seems to possess intimate knowledge of the powder Dennis is after. The first encounter with him is not fruitful, as Mozart tried to scam him with rat poison. When Dennis discovers his sham, he threatens to leave. So Mozart gets serious and tells him that he will get him the powder, but on one condition: Dennis has to help prepare it. But getting back to Boston safely again proves to be problematic. Patraud again has Dennis arrested, but this time tells him that getting away unscathed is no longer an option. Dennis asks him what he wants then, to which Patraud replies that he wants to hear him scream. Dennis's face of terror is undeniable, as can be seen in Bill's incredible performance. The captain drives a nail about 20 centimeters through Dennis' scrotum, then the screams are heard throughout the police precinct. Dennis, wounded in body, mind and pride, goes to Duchamp to take him back to Mozart. Duchamp tells him he must leave because his life is in danger, but Dennis now more than ever wants to take that powder with him. Dennis and Mozart begin the process of preparing the substance, which takes many days and many nights. But one morning after Dennis has a nightmare, where the same woman who was buried in the cemetery appears to him, then a snake comes out of her tongue and bites Dennis, but it was only the beginning, because suddenly his bedroom slowly turns into a coffin, until he is moved to a pantheon where he is being buried alive. And that's not all. The most terrifying thing is that he can see Captain Patraud above the pit mocking him as he is buried. Then he wakes up scared and realizes that next to him is the body of a deceased woman, who turned out to be Christoph's sister. He is arrested along with the doctor and brought before Patraud again. This time the threats went further. He told him that if he did not take the plane, he would be judged and sentenced to death, and when he died his soul would be his property for eternity by locking it in a clay vessel. He then tells him that he must leave and take the plane that was about to leave, but Dennis asks him what will happen to Duchamp. Patraud tells him that she is at home, and once he leaves he has no reason to hurt her. Before Dennis heads to the plane, Patraud asks him what he dreamed last night. Then the captain tells him the dream just as it had happened. Dennis put on a face that it was not true, but the captain told him that he knew, because he was there. He told him that if he stayed he would hurt him, but not like in the torture room. This time he would destroy his mind. These scenes are incredibly terrifying. The level of detail in capturing a dream is incredible, helped by Bill's performance of course, where the terror on that face is present at all times while the dreams are being presented, and upon waking up the face of dismay and concern continues after waking up. So Dennis takes that plane, but just above, Mozart appears and hands him the powder. Dennis tells him that he doesn't have any money, but Mozart tells him to just make sure he tells everyone that he's the creator and keeps Dennis' watch as a down payment. Dennis laughs and goes back home with the powder. In Boston, they begin their studies, revealing amazing discoveries, such as that the powder practically shuts down the entire body, including the brain, except for a small part, which is in charge of keeping the body alive. But that's not all, it keeps it conscious. That is to say that while they are in a state of lethargy, they witness everything, such as the funeral and especially the burial. After witnessing the possession of the company owner's wife, Dennis returns to Haiti, having never been able to get Dr. Duchamp out of his head. At the airport he is intercepted by police officers. Dennis screams for help, but no one does anything. But the police were fake and were actually Lucien's people. Lucien tells Dennis that he was right, all this had to stop and Patraud had to be arrested. But when he leaves, Lucien is possessed and finally dies, while Patraud is seen drinking Mozart's blood, whom he decapitated and collected his blood to drink. On the other hand, someone throws a powder in Dennis's face. Dennis knows he will die, so he just screams not to bury him, finally falls in the street and is taken to a doctor who did nothing but determine the time of death, and asks to notify his embassy. But at that moment Patraud appears and tells him that he will take care of everything. The doctor is not very convinced, but he is not able to contradict him. So Dennis is buried, but he is a witness to all these events. Meanwhile, Patraud is seen just as in his dreams, mocking Dennis while throwing dirt on him. When he woke up, Dennis remembered Duchamp's words, that he would scream a lot when he woke up, so he screamed in desperation, very normal in his situation, until suddenly he heard noises outside, and then he screamed louder. Someone was digging him up, and when he managed to get out of the grave, he looked at Christophe, who rescued him, and said, "We are alive." Dennis returns for the final battle against Patraud, engaging in a physical and spiritual struggle. Patraud's power was unbeatable, his physical strength was great, but his spiritual strength was even greater. And just when everything seemed lost, Dennis got help from none other than Lucien. Dennis defeats Patraud physically, but when he was leaving, Patraud appears again as a superhuman, breaking floors and walls. Outside, meanwhile, the community was taking on Patraud's police as the president fled to the airport, leaving Haiti in anarchy. In his book, Davis details his research into the process of making zombies in Haiti, investigating the case of Clairvius Narcisse, a Haitian man who was supposedly zombified and subsequently enslaved, and on whom the film's character, Christophe, is based. In addition, the book meticulously details the composition of the zombie drug, which includes a mixture of puffer fish, dried toad, sea worms, various other ingredients and additives, and an intricate system of voodoo rituals. The crux of Davis's findings was that the zombification is a chemically induced near-death experience, followed by keeping the resurrected zombie docile by drugging it with devil's trumpet, an herb containing a hallucinogenic alkaloid. The entire phenomenon is further amplified by religious conviction and fear. The scientific validity of Davis's research and resulting findings have been questioned and remain controversial, though not conclusively refuted, to this day. The Serpent and the Rainbow closely incorporates and follows Davis's findings, particularly with the process Louis Mozart takes us through in the film, save for a few dramatic liberties. Interestingly, filmmaker Richard Stanley made a documentary for the BBC in 2000, broadcast in 2002, about the magical aspects of creating zombies in Haiti called The White Darkness. He went in as sensibly as possible, but his experiences there seem to retroactively, and probably incidentally, support Craven's adaptations. What sets The Serpent and the Rainbow apart from almost every other zombie film made since White Zombie, 1932, is that it takes the subject matter completely seriously. Voodoo is treated respectfully as the predominant syncretic religion in real-life Haiti. The rites and processions are authentic and the locations are real. The Serpent and the Rainbow was shot in Haiti and the Dominican Republic. In conclusion, The Serpent and the Rainbow is a unique and unfairly underrated film. It is an exceptionally fascinating, disturbing, terrifying, fascinating, and highly recommended viewing experience that will let your imagination run wild after you see it, because if you watch it alone, but really alone, without anyone at home and that night you spend alone, besides midnight and in total darkness, you will finish the film in total tension. And I assure you that you will have an abnormal feeling during that night and others. I say goodbye and thank you for your time. I look forward to your comments and your subscription. Goodbye.